What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to Fatherhood, where we aim to uplift voices and redefine legacy by having real conversations about what it means to be a Black father in the world today. On today's episode, we're shining a light on the men who are showing up in powerful ways, not just at home, but in the classrooms, on school boards, and throughout the entire community. Here to help me unpack this much-needed topic is Memphis Shelby County School Board member Tamarcus Porter.
Thank you.
CEO of Fathers First, Antonio Harvey.
Thanks for having me today.
And CEO of Raising the Bar Community Foundation or Development, Michael Mosby.
Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome again, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time today. And I know that I just gave the viewers a glimpse of who you are by giving your titles and your organizations, but I love to give you the opportunity to share more about who you are as a man, as a leader, outside of your official titles and your roles. Let's learn a little bit more about who each of you are.
Well, thanks for having me again. My name is Tamarcus Porter, Memphis Shelby County School Board for District 4. But outside of the political realm, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an educational advocate, technology advocate. And so a lot of my time has been, I've been preparing myself for a particular role. That's within fathership, and that's with leadership as well. So I'm from Orange Mound, I graduated from Melrose High School. And so just growing up in those environments, it will prepare you for whatever comes to you in life. And fortunate enough that I was blessed to have two sons named Taj and Amir. And just the joy of being a father is setting a vision for them and just leading a path where I can be a role model for them and set some sort of modality that they can follow.
Okay, Antonio.
All right. So just like my brother here, Mr. Porter, I'm a native Memphian, grew up in Memphis. I pride myself on being an educator, but also a servant leader. Okay. I've been in the educational field for over 28 years now. I've held numerous roles in education, from being a teacher to a principal to a district official. And now I'm working actually back in the school environment, actually at the school where I actually grew up at. In North Memphis at Valentine Elementary, and so that's an exciting time. But for me, one of my greatest honors is being a father. I have two kids who actually go to school here in Memphis, Nia and Noah. And so for me, being a father is helping prepare them for the future, but also preparing the environment that they're going to be in for the future, so they can have somewhere to land in a good place and have a place where they can thrive here in the city of Memphis. So a lot of the work I'm doing now is preparing them to be successful in Memphis.
That's fantastic. It's like a full circle moment right there. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Mike?
Man, much like these good brothers here, man, in addition to raising a bar, man, I am a native Memphian. I lived elsewhere, stayed in Atlanta for quite a bit, and man, came back home, man, to like do the works here. Part of the works is I'm also the head football coach of a high school here, local high school here, man. But I really enjoy being dad. I'm a husband, a father, big brother, mentor, uncle, unk as the young people call, man. But I enjoy fatherhood, man. I grew up, my mom raised all boys, particularly by herself, man. My dad wasn't there to see us grow up. He wasn't there while he was here, but we never like saw lack, but there was a void that was definitely needed to be filled throughout my life. I didn't know until I became an adult. So I'm a father of 5, and man, 4 are living. Man, we have an angel for sure, but man, I enjoy this thing called fatherhood, AKA dad, AKA Big Daddy, but man, I really enjoy it for sure, man. It's an honor for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oak Haven.
Okay.
Oak Haven.
Nice.
Not in your district, man. I wish I was.
And Mike, I appreciate the transparency and you sharing that. I'd love to hear from you, Tamarcus and Antonio, about your relationships with your fathers growing up. What was that like, and how, if any, what role did that play in how you go about fatherhood today?
For me, I didn't grow up with my father in the household. I knew who he was, but just not in the household. But I had a lot of uncles, and I had a lot of football coaches from playing Little League football. So you have those particular role models in your life that can just, again, guide you and just show you how to be a man. I'm just thinking about a story right now. I still remember my uncle teaching me how to drive. But he put me on the expressway. So I'm like, oh, it's like, well, like just driving crazy. And so, but you learn those lessons, and you just learn a lesson like just playing football, being around other guys, and having that coach. I played at Melrose High School, like I mentioned. Coach Tim Thompson, he was a father figure to all of us, and some of those principles that he instilled in us is still carrying on to this day. Just about work ethic, treating people with respect, just respecting yourself, respecting women. So those are the things. So, but by me not having a father in the household, I took those lessons from people that was around me, and sometimes you learn the lessons from watching TV. When I was growing up, I don't know the ideal role model that was on TV. So you look at the football coaches again, you look at your uncles and just the people in the neighborhood. So but you just learn those lessons, and then I'm able to carry those lessons on throughout life to my two boys.
Yeah, it takes a village.
It takes a healthy village.
Yeah.
A lot of people say it takes a village to raise children, but what they leave out is it takes a healthy village to raise a child.
That's a good call out. It's a good call out. And we're gonna have to talk a little bit later about you learning how to drive on the expressway. Yeah. That's great. I never heard that before. Antonio?
For me, basically, I didn't have a father in my life, but I did have a wonderful mother who was very intentional about placing me in situations where I could learn about being a man. I remember her taking me to the Valentine's Boys Club and letting me go there to, participate in sports and things like that. And then she also immersed me in church. And so I was around the pastors and the deacons and those men who were men of God, who showed me some of the different things that I needed to do in regards to, becoming a man later on in life. And then also, like Brother Porter said, you had your circle. I grew up with a whole bunch of guys who didn't have our fathers, but we were actually brothers to each other and helped us to uplift ourselves. And then when I just think about that, and I think about now, by me having that absence, it made me actually want to be a better father. And it made me want to strive to do what's right and to be in the gap for my children. And so that's kind of fueled the fire for me as a father to my children, but also as a surrogate for other young people as I've been working in my career as an educator. And so just, being there for those young men who I've taught in Orange Mound, in North Memphis, and Westwood, and in South Memphis. And so just having those experiences has been a real big boost for me.
Yeah. No, and I love that, Antonio. And for me, that really encompasses the topic of today's conversation, which is redefining fatherhood. So I'd love to hear from y'all in terms of, because, when I was growing up, the kids are a little different. They built a little different now than back when we were growing up. Thanks. So I'd love to hear how fatherhood has expanded, from your lens over the years. Like, our roles they're different now. It's more, there are no bounds. But I'd love to hear from y'all in terms of, how has fatherhood expanded from your point of view?
I will say for me, it's interesting. Like, I have a sophomore in college and a freshman in college right now, and my son is on a full football scholarship at Miles College. And my daughter's at fantastic. Jackson State University. And my son, man, freshman year, have some challenges, getting involved, just getting accustomed to a new system, right? And just a couple months ago, called with some, discouragement on his heart. And man, I'm very different. I'm very loud. I'm very animated. I'm raw all the time, right? No matter what the topic is, so he knew he was gonna get his daddy that was gonna come off like a coach, that's gonna come off like a motivational speaker, that's gonna come off like a preacher. He knew he was gonna get all that. So his mom and I were on the phone with him, and man, we were just encouraging him. But I was on him, and it was just tough love, tough talk. And I was just telling him, man, like, you got this. You got this, my dog. You don't quit. And I told him, not because I want you to play football. You can do whatever it is you want to do. Like, I want you to be successful. I said, but because if you quit now, 30 years from now, you'll quit on your family. And then when we finished talking, I told him, I said, man, I wish I had this talk with my dad. Because I quit, I went to college for a semester and quit. I didn't have my father. I had uncles, but they were all busy, but they were definitely involved, heavily involved. But that fatherly impact that I saw change the dynamic of my son's thinking in that moment, I was like, man, I wish I had my dad. I told him that. I wish I had my dad. So for me, like the fatherhood now versus growing up, personal experience, like it's different. So you get to see all the voids as an adult. Like you're like, man, I had that void, I had that void, I had that void. But also you get to see how to fill those voids with your current children. Yeah. And being a father of teenagers now, in this day and age, it's interesting. It's very interesting for sure, man. So let's get that example for sure.
Absolutely.
And I can kind of share some of those same experiences. Like, so I have 2 young boys, but just about the question you said, redefine how you redefine fatherhood. This day and age, for me, is more so listening to my boys. We often talk about the mental health pieces in our communities alone, but especially men's mental health. But just listening to them when they would come home and say, hey, Dad, I really got a question about this, but having a safe space, open up that safe space where they can trust you with listening. Oftentimes people think that, because I'm the dad, that you automatically have a bond. Usually it's the woman that has to automatically bond with the child because she's carrying the child. Sometimes fathers have to go through something or do something with your child to create that bond. It's the same thing that animals do as well. So just having this safe space for my son and saying, hey, cause I was an athlete in high school, right? My children are theater children. Yeah. So just that transition, and they musicians, musical as well. So just having that transition mentally to say, oh, you know what? I don't have to, be so hard on them, and think that, hey, you have to grow up like how I grew up. My job is to provide a better lifestyle for you. But just listening, just not being so, just being so hard on them. Just creating a safe space where they can just feel themselves and be free. And it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. It's okay to ask those tough questions, because you know what? Throughout my life now, I've had to cry. I had to go apologize to my children to a certain degree, because I said, man, I shouldn't have told them that, or because I'm frustrated, I need to realize my frustration, not take it out on them. So it's just those particular pieces that we have to transition and redefine father. Say, hey, let me take a step back, and it's okay to show your child that you're vulnerable at times.
I love it. I love it. And look, we're all fathers, right? We wear multiple hats, right? So we're fathers, we're mentors, and I think we've touched on how fatherhood has changed, how these kids have even changed. But how has mentoring changed for y'all? We're all in the trenches, right? We're all mentoring kids, but mentoring isn't easy, right? You can't just, you can't just show up one day, introduce yourself, sit down, and all of a sudden you've got a mentee, right? You got to be able to earn that trust with these kids now, because if you're just there to check off a box, they can smell it, they can sense it, right? And they immediately check out. So I'd love to hear from y'all. How has mentoring changed? How, are y'all seeing the same thing that I'm seeing? And what are y'all doing to really get through to these kids and meet them where they are?
So I can step into that piece. And so by me being back in the school environment now, it really pushes me to actually be more of an active mentor to a lot of young men in the school environment. And so one of the biggest pieces, I think, is relationships. You have to build relationships with the young people and find out what they're interested in, find out what the connection pieces may be for those young men and young women, and then use it as a leverage piece to support them. And so I know for me, when I'm in the school environment, a lot of times we talk about sports. A lot of the guys, they love to talk about sports. They love to talk about comics and superhero things now. That's really big. And so you connect with that particular piece, and you use that as a way to start to build those fruitful conversations, which can lead to other things. And so, like for me at my school, every day I have about 4 or 5 guys who actually walk with every day. I do my mile walk, and we walk in the hallways, we talk, and I found a lot of stuff out about their lives just doing that 15, 20-minute walk. But it's enriching for them because they come back every day. Are we going to go walking, Mr. Harvey? Oh, yeah, most definitely.
And
they look forward to it. And so they come to school, they They behave better because they want to have that interaction with somebody who they feel cares about them. So I think building those relationships and being intentional and finding what the children actually need is a way to actually support them with this mentor piece. But then also the next piece is you got to model what you expect. And so, showing them, what a man should actually behave like and carry themselves is truly important in this day and time.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I will piggyback on what Tonio just said, because I think it's no one shoe fits all when it comes to mentoring nowadays. Because, growing up, although I got into a lot of trouble, a whole lot of trouble. And we had guys that stopped by the school, once a week, but they were very consistent, right? You know who they are, and you was like, oh, that's Mr. Such and Such, man, coming by, do his program, whatever. Now, man, for me and my experience in every day with these young men, it's like, it's whatever you got to show up as that day. Whatever you got to show up as that day, because you may have to be the priest that day, you may have to be the financial advisor that day, you may have to be the lawyer that day, and unofficially, you may have to be the PO that day, you may have to be the bounty hunter some days for boys in the communities that we serve, right? And it's, when you say you got a model, I have this philosophy that, man, you have role models and you have real models. And mentoring nowadays, you got to take the place of a real model. You got to be locked in, because if you're not locked in, number one, youth nowadays are very, very smart. We didn't have iPhones and stuff when we was in school,
Right.
I remember getting my first Cricket, but man, it was no kill phone. But man, they can research anything. They have access to so much stuff, and a lot of times, man, with the boys that we serve, like, they're kind of out here in life fending for themselves. So you have to show up, man. They know that you there, they know that you care, but man, sometimes, like, they gotta really know, and it's not what you say. It's really what you do. It's really you, man. Coach really pulled up on us. Being in the courtroom, one half surgery, being at the hospital bed, man. Family going through some stuff, being an aid, some kind of support, man. It's no one shoe fits all, but it depends on whatever's that day, whatever they on that day. That's what you know that you got to deal with that day for sure, because it forever changes by the minute, by the second, for sure.
I love it. So you got role models and you got real models. I'm gonna have to use that. I like that. I like that.
I like
That's
that.
pretty good. But I echo what these gentlemen say. We have organizations that say what they see they will be. And my thing is, but they have to see something. And so what is a real man? What is a real man these days? I know growing up, we, like I said earlier, we had those role models and mentors, but now it's not so much the guy showing up with the fancy car and the shiny suit that's in front of the class or in the community event. It's the guy that actually just showing up and say, hey, I want to be there, I'm present. And another thing I think about mentorship is that, we can talk about our jobs and everything, but now is how can we pull that young man or the young lady and show them actually how to get from A to B? How can we teach them something? We talking about fatherhood and men, but the root word men is mental. And so the root word of mental is men. And so when we just looking at the word, or what is actual man? A man is a actual thinking, sapient being, but it has no gender. The gender is male and female. But how do we get that young man to think in such a way that he can change his trajectory in life?
I love it. And what they see is what they'll be. Is what they'll be. It's very profound. It's the slogan for our organization, the 100 Black Men of Memphis and of America. And access and exposure is so important. And I love to touch on creating safe spaces for our kids for a moment. These kids, they're only, a lot of times when they're in school, that's the safest they are.
Absolutely.
That's the most comfortable they are throughout the entire day, right? And so when that bell rings at 2:15 or 3:15 or whatever time they get out of school, they got to go back to their real lives, right? They may not eat, they may not have love, they may not have support, right? So how do we collaborate and work better together to create safe spaces for these kids so that they can bring their best selves to work, and then when they're out of school, not fall through the cracks and be subject to all the other traps that are out there waiting for them to, go into the system.
That's part of one of the reasons why I did ran for school board, because I wanted to be able to create safer neighborhoods and safer schools, and to create those safe spaces. Oftentimes that, when I was just walking through the neighborhood, they say, Mr. Porter, how do you make it out? And a lot of times we get caught up in budgets and policies and just the politics of what's happening in the state level and local level. But again, I'm walking through the schools, I'm walking through the neighborhoods, and you got a boy that pull you to the side and say, well, how do you make it out? And because the true story, like my mother is my dad has left the house because he used to beat on me, and he's leaving. He's left the state because he's chasing child support. He's run away from child support payments and stuff like that. And so oftentimes I sit back and think about, well, what can I say to relate to this child? It's not so much I can say something about a policy or budget. They don't care about that. How can I relate? So those type of stories were really just drove me to running for school board, and also trying to break this. I know Tonio talked about just like the school to prison pipeline. Those type of statistics, if a child can't learn how to read by the third grade, on the third grade level, more likely they may end up going to jail and not graduate. So for me, those environments have to be created. And we can talk about why they created, who created, but just trying to break that school to prison pipeline and say, hey, you can actually be a difference maker in your own life. Let's show you how to educate yourself. And the way you educate yourself, you just gotta learn how to read. But not so reading like the child can't learn how to read. The word reading means decoding and deciphering symbols. Now let's teach them what the symbols are. Now half of our teachers in the school system may have a problem with that, because we never were taught to teach like this. And so again, I know I'm shifting a bit, going to a different type of conversation, but just again, that's part of the reason I ran, because again, just trying to help the next generation of children to come from one of the same communities I came from, just to be a part of that solution. I've always wanted to be a part of the solution. And two, I have two little boys, and I don't want them to look back 20 years from now and saying, Dad, you knew literacy, community, violence was the problem, and you didn't do nothing about it. Yeah. And so I don't want to have it hanging over my head.
Love it. And to your point, that's something that we could talk about for an hour alone. But I would love to give the final word to you, Mike, and you, Antonio, about creating safe spaces for our kids.
I think, like we talked about before, having a healthy village, it's time for us to truly bring that back and really have that essence in our community. So we have to look at who are the main components to supporting our children. We got to bring the church back into the equation. We have to bring the community back into the equation. We have a lot of opportunities where churches can open their doors again in the evening after school hours and have programming in those schools. We have to find a way also to fund nonprofit organizations who have the capacity to support but need that funding that they need to support those organizations and everything. So I think once we look at, what are the goals that we have, how do we get there, then we have to actually put them into effect. And so I just think about our school, when our kids leave in the afternoon, they're walking home. That's an opportunity where somebody can say, hey, let me get this church bus, let's bring them over here for an after school program, teach them something about history, teach them about literacy, teach them about technology or coding, doing things like that, help them with maybe learning about physical activities, things of that nature. And we bring those safe spaces, then we will allow them to actually be able to thrive again. Because if they're just going to the corner store, then anything can happen. So we have to really bring them back and bring the healthy community back working together.
Love it.
I love that saying, when it takes a village, we heard it plenty of times. Yeah, sometimes I hear that, the question come in my head like it just did. Now, what happens when the village need help?
That's right.
Then the answer just came to me with one answer, man, it takes all of us, It takes all of us. Man, it takes conversations like this that go beyond, the shows that go beyond. It takes these real conversations that are solution-based, man. And, he's in a school district. He has an organization. I have an organization. I'm not in the school district as a teacher, but I'm in the school district as a coach. But what if we all came together? What can we build together? The young man is the champion. So we need to, figuratively speaking, man, build a whole off-season plan for the champion to be developed. Because, man, right now, we know we're facing a lot of challenges here in Memphis, with our young guys, with our young brothers. And, man, it's is on an all-time incline, but man, how do we actually bring it to, man, decline some, but it's take all of us, because the village is struggling.
Absolutely.
The village is under fire. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I appreciate that, gentlemen. We are out of time. Like I said, this is something that we can easily unpack for another hour and
Absolutely.
a half. But today's topic reminded us that fatherhood is more than a title, far more than a title. It's a commitment to lead, to show up every day, and to build community in every space that we enter. So big thanks to our guests for sharing this platform with us, sharing their stories and their purpose. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next time as we continue to celebrate voices, victories, and everyday moments that shape Black fatherhood.